Want to start by posing a question. My father was an engineer, and he worked an impressive 32 years at his first job right out of college. My question to you is, how common is that in today's generation? Not so common. Back in his generation, it was a very common occurrence, but the job market has changed. And what is the reality today? That is that you're going to be changing your jobs probably multiple times throughout your career. If we can dive into the stats, in a recent study, it was learned that the average physician changes their jobs once every 7 years. And once every 7 years might not sound like it's that frequent. However, if you dive into the stats, you'll actually find out that 1 in 3 physicians actually change between 1 and 4 years. So they change more frequently. What my personal observations have been is physicians are more inclined to change much earlier in their career at a much more frequent basis than later in their career or near the end of their career. Frequent changes might be rough on a young family, rough on a social life, rough on your mental state. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about things you can do to make sure that your first jobs are more long-lasting jobs and that you're able to stay at them at a longer period of time, not so much having to jump around until you find out what truly is the right fit for you, but rather find the right fit for you right from the get-go so you don't have to continue to look and experiment on jobs as a painful way to do it. So first of all, you've got a number of questions you need to ask yourself. First, we'll start with the how. How are you going to practice? We found in pediatrics there's lots of different avenues that you can practice in. You can practice outpatient, you can practice hospitalist, you can practice urgent care. Whichever forum you choose is going to shape the future choices that you have before you. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go into the presentation. However, I did want to make sure that you make some serious considerations of the how question. And the second question you need to ask is when? When are you going to practice? And I'd say maybe more appropriate would be to title that, how much are you going to practice? Are you going to practice full-time, part-time, call, no call, perhaps locum tenens? How much are you going to practice? And then the where. This is the zip code. For some people, they want to practice right by their family. Other people, they don't want to practice by their family. They want to be somewhere else. But we need to decide the where. But the question I really want to make sure we focus in on is that of trusted partnerships. And I'll call this the circle of trust, on who you let into your circle of trust. Typically, we let our family in, we let some friends in, but it's important that we consider the other individuals that we should have in our circle of trust, whether that's an accountant, maybe a lawyer, or even a recruiter, or a career coach. But we need to make sure that whoever we let into our circle of trust, our trusted partnerships, are people that are credible and people that we trust ourselves. Napoleon Hill was a successful, well, he was a renowned success coach, and he taught the concept of the mastermind or the brain share. And basically the concept was the more people you surround yourself with the higher skill sets that they have, you're able to incorporate those into your own. So you don't need to be an expert in everything. Just make sure you surround yourself with people that actually have the skills and the attributes and the knowledge that you need to make sure you do well. And the more skilled the people are you surround yourself with, the higher you'll go in this life and the more successful you'll be. And so we'll talk a little bit more about the kind of individuals you can include in your trusted partnership, but you need to make sure that they're credible and they're people that you truly do want to let into your inner circle. Now, before we answer all these questions, we need to make sure we ask a few other questions. And I encourage you to make a list of the things that are truly most important to you. And we'll go through it. There's tangible, intangible, and personal. And we'll talk through each one of these. First of all, the tangibles. This is compensation, it's benefits, it's loan repayment, it's perhaps it's moving expenses, relocation expenses. It's all the things you're going to find posted on a job board that's going to make it really easy to see the tangible, the touchable things that you can see about a job. Second, you need to consider, and in my opinion, one of the most important is actually the intangible. And this is something that I don't think always gets as much attention as it should. The intangible is a little bit more about what's the job stability? How long has this place been in business? Is it going to stay in business for a while? Is my job secure? What's the prestige? And what's the work-life balance? What's the culture? And how am I going to fit into this organization? Those are things you don't usually see posted on a job board. And those are something that you need to make sure that you review what's truly important to you. What do you want and make sure you have that in mind when you are starting to look for different job opportunities. And then last, personal. I'd start with family, and I believe the statement says that the family ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. You need to make sure that you're looking to make sure that it's going to fit for your family situation. What's the school situation? What's the crime rate? Parks, leisure, what's the social life if you're single or if you're not single? Just making sure that it has everything that you need there. The community lifestyles, all important things. I encourage you to make this list before you seriously start considering job opportunities. No matter what stage you are in your career, this will continue to change throughout your life. And you need to make sure that you've gone through and listed not only how much you want to make or what benefits are necessary there, but what other things fit into what's currently important to you in your life at that time. So digging in a little bit more into the how. As you all know, the traditional practice, full scope pediatrics, you're kind of the jack of all trades. You can do it all. You can do clinic, you can do call. We're seeing that more and more physicians are actually gravitating away from this. They're gravitating towards more of an outpatient practice or a hospitalist, pediatric hospitalist, one or the other, kind of a gravitation. Now, they're great careers, both of them, and they both have their merits. However, as you start going down one path, oftentimes it's going to limit your ability to start switching to the other path. As I've noticed in my profession, oftentimes most hospitals have about a 2-year period where if you go outside of 2 years of doing specific procedures, it becomes progressively harder to credential you to do that procedure again. So if you become a, for example, outpatient practicing pediatrician and you're not doing a lot of the procedures that a pediatric hospitalist might be doing, you're no longer going to be able to get credentialed to do that. Not only that, you might not be able to get insurance, malpractice, medical and malpractice insurance, if you go too long out of that practice. So again, they're both viable options, but you need to be aware that whatever choices you choose as far as how you're going to practice is going to shape your future choices. So some physicians choose to stay in the traditional, where they keep one foot in both sides so they can keep the maximum choices to them throughout their career. And then other things you'll need to decide is in what form are you going to practice? Is it going to be a solo practice? Is it going to be a hospital? A lot of physicians go back into fellowship and continue their training. As far as the when, how much are you going to work? Are you going to work, 8 to 5? Are you an 8 to 5er? Are you, do you want to work shifts? If you want to work shifts, ped hospitalist might be the way to go. We worked with a lot of different doctors in all different situations. I've worked with a number of physicians that like just working weekends, and that's all they work. So they actually have Monday through Friday. It's non-traditional, but that's what worked for them. Worked with another physician I'd call a marathon worker, and that is he put all his work together so that he could then have extended periods of time. So he had two loves. One was doing pediatrics, practicing pediatrics, and his other was photography. Two guesses on which one paid the bill. Okay, so he was an accomplished photographer, but he would have been a starving photographer because it just didn't pay. So what he would do is he'd work long stints of shifts back to back, and then he would take a few weeks off at a time and travel the country so he could, take advantage of his other love, taking pictures. Anybody that wants to stick by afterwards, I'd be happy to tell you about a funny run-in he had with a buffalo on the way to North Dakota. So it truly are lots of opportunities out there, but you need to decide the when and what when works best for you and how you want to practice your career. It's not just necessarily 8 to 5. There's all kinds of opportunities out there. There's places that work just night shifts. There's places that work swing shifts. There's places that work weekends. Find out what works best for you and your family. And third, where do I go from here? So I grew up in a little town called Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, and I loved it. As a child, it was the best place. I never wanted to leave. It had good hunting, good fishing. They had a lot of chiggers. I didn't really care. It had mosquitoes and ticks, but I just thought that was normal. But as far as I was concerned, that was the only place I ever wanted to be. However, a few years later, I went off to school in Utah. World famous skiing, wonderful hikes, great hunting, no chiggers. They don't even know what they are there. In fact, if you don't know what they are, they're not a fun little bug. Mosquitoes, not so bad. And the biggest selling point, no tornadoes in Utah. And that was something I thought was just standard. But the point I'm bringing up is, in my perception, with my, my closed blinders, I thought that Oklahoma was it, and that was the place for me. But there are so many gyms just tucked in across the country that if you find out a little bit about those areas, you might find out that, wow, that's exactly the place I'm looking for. And you need to make sure that when you're considering what opportunities are available to you, that you don't narrow your focus so much to just what you know, but open your mind and your eyes to what other opportunities are out there and abound. So I want to talk a little bit about how working with a recruiting agency can actually help open your opportunities to you. So for most physicians, when a job comes up, when it comes to a time in their career when they need to find a new job and they want to switch career, or, switch to a different employer throughout their career, a lot of them go immediately to the job boards, which I think is a great place to start, a great place to look and see what you have. But as we discussed, sometimes you have those blinders on, and so you might see that there's jobs all across the country, but you don't really know what the appeal is in those different locations. You don't know, well, gosh, what is it? Do I want to work in New Mexico or do I want to work in Maine? I don't know it. I only know what I know. So it's a good place to start, but a second place that I would recommend that you also consider is networking. Networking has been successful in any business that you're in. You talk to other people, other peers, and find out what they know and what they like, and they can give you some good insights as to where you're going and what your options are available to you. The only problem you run into is if you're in the early end of your career, how big's your network? Pretty small, right? Pretty limited. Or if you're busily working, say you're a ped hospitalist and you're working 24-hour shifts and your limited time you have is with your family and you sleep and right back to work again, networking is going to be very limited. So this is where a recruiting agency comes in. They can actually help you by letting you join their established network of clients throughout the country. So they can actually help guide you and put you in contact with the right people so that you can learn more about what the options are out there. Instead of just knowing maybe dozens of opportunities that you find on your own, it could open it to hundreds of opportunities throughout the country. And also go into things as far as the second part, which is they can help set you apart. They can help you prepare for that interview. They'll let you know what specifically that facility is looking for. They can help you get your CV just situated just right for that specific location that you're looking for, because not every facility is looking for exactly the same thing. Some of them have hot buttons, and a known recruiting agency, a credible recruiting agency that's actually worked with that facility before is actually going to know that. They're going to have some experience there. They're going to have other physicians that they've actually placed there, and they'll be able to use that expertise to make sure they give you the best chance of success with your interview at the facility. Also, job market knowledge. The pay rate, for example, is not the same in every part of the country. It's not the same here in San Diego as it might be in, say, Minneapolis, St. Paul, or something along those lines. Each area is going to have a different compensation rate. There's going to have different things that you need to be aware of. And so you can't just necessarily compare everything apples to apples. And so again, by working with an agency, a credible agency that has experience working in all the markets across the country, they're going to bring to bear the experience that they have to let you know what the expectation should be for that area. And then another thing that really is helpful is if they've had physicians work at that very facility, which often is the case, they can actually put you in contact with that physician so you can get kind of a full spectrum idea of what the facility is like. So it's one thing to talk to the people that are right there in the practice and get their idea on the practice, but it's another thing to talk to somebody that is a former employee. You can get more of a general idea of what the practice is as you talk to different people to make sure it's the right fit for you. I'm often asked about locum tenens, and this is really my area of expertise, so I just wanted to talk about it very briefly. First of all, locum tenens is a great option for you no matter what time of your career you're in. It doesn't matter which stage of the career you're in. Locum tenens can definitely fill in and help you make sure your needs are met. First of all, in early career, one of the great things that locum tenens does, it's a great way to fill gaps. Oftentimes, physicians will get out of their residency and won't have something secured right at the end, and so it's a great way to fill that gap while they continue to do their interviewing. Also, many times, a physician might actually have secured a job, but they find out that, say, the Texas license takes 6 months to get. And so a great way to fill in that time and make sure they're getting the experience and have an income coming in during that time as well. A very common occurrence as well is you finish your program only to find out that your spouse is still in their program. And so again, a few years of lag. So it's a great way to kind of fill that gap. Another reason why it's good in your early career is kind of a trial experience. I call this dating before you marry. Give you a little example of this. Little story I like to share is there was this man that died, and he was a good man but kind of average in other areas, and so when they decided whether he was going to go to heaven or go to the nether regions, he was right in the middle. They really didn't know which way to put him. So they gave him the option to say, well, we'll let you spend one day in heaven and one day in the nether regions, and you get to decide which one you're going to go to. So he said, oh, seems fair. First day, He goes up to heaven, sees it, beautiful parks, kids playing on swings, you know, music playing, harps, everything. It was great, everything he wanted. He's like, this seems like a no-brainer, but I'm going to go ahead and just try out the other place just to be sure. So the next day, they send him down to the nether regions. Gets there, he's amazed. They have these giant, long buffet tables with just all the food you could ever imagine, golf courses as far as the eyes could see. And he's thinking, wow, I actually like this place better. So he goes back up and says, great, I've decided I'm going to the nether regions. Sign me up. And he signs a 2-year contract, you know, or sorry, we'll say a lifetime contract, eternal contract. So he signs his contract. He goes right back down, and what do you know? The buffet tables are gone. The golf courses are replaced with big old lava fields. And he asks somebody, he says, what happened? I was just here, and all this stuff was there. And he says, well, yesterday we were recruiting you. Today you're staff. So the point I'm making is, one interview is not typically enough to know what you're signing yourself up for. That's the beauty of locum tenens. It's a great way to try something out for basically a working interview. If you went for a week or a month or a few months, you're really going to know what's going on at that facility before you sign on the dotted line for, I think the average contract's about 2 years or beyond. So again, a great way to make sure that you're knowing what you're signing yourself up for. And then also the experience. As we talked before, some doctors get out of practice and they're not sure if they really want to be the outpatient or they want to be the hospitalist or where they want to practice. Great way to get out there and see what really fits for you and what you enjoy the most. Talking briefly about mid-career life transitions. I like to often call these like pre-retirements. Oftentimes we think of all the things we're going to do when we retire. Well, if you were able to basically do a pre-retirement where you can still enjoy it and actually go out and do the things you want to do and then work part-time during that time, so I highly encourage it to physicians that have the means to do that. Locum tenens can actually provide a good way to make the income while they're doing it and then take, you know, a week off, 2 weeks, take off a month to do that trip to Europe, something along those lines. But something good. So if you end one job and you're going for another, spend that time to have the extra time to look for the right opportunity for you, but also take off some well-needed time and enjoy it while you still can during that time. Avoid the burnout. Same thing is maybe you could take just an extended period of time off during the middle of your career and enjoy from moving from job to job. Also a great way to supplement income. A lot of times I've talked to physicians that have started up their own practice and they find that the money's going out faster than it's coming in the front end of it. So what a lot of the practice partners will do is one partner will stay behind and tend the store, so to speak, at the practice, while the other one will actually go out and work locum tenens and bring revenue in as they kind of get established and move things up. And then the last, semi-retirement. Very popular for locum tenens physicians as well. That's when they basically can work as little or as much as they want. We have physicians that work, you know, maybe 6 weeks out of the year or more. A lot of times physicians are so busy and they're working and they retire and they think it's just going to be great, and about a month later they decide, I am bored. I am so bored. And so it's a great way to make sure they're keeping their foot in the door and keeping the practice. Because again, if they go more than about 2 years without practicing, it becomes extremely hard to get back to work. So locum tenens provides an avenue for them to keep their skills current and decide if retirement really is the right thing for them. Seasonal, have a lot of doctors that are snowbirders. So basically, when it's warm here, they love it. But when it starts getting cold, they want us to put them to someplace warm. And so it's a good way to travel the country on someone else's dime because their travel expenses are covered for them. And there's less hassle. They're not running their own practice, so it's a good opportunity for them to basically turn over the administration to someone else and just focus on being a physician. So great ways to do it as far as locum tenens is a great option for you. In conclusion, I just want to rehash one more time the importance it is for us to review what things are truly most important for us in our career. Review the tangibles, the intangibles, the personals. Make a list before you ever start looking at a new career or a new job opportunity out there. Make sure you complete a complete list of what's important to you, that you have that in hand. Oftentimes I found that a lot of times people fall into the common pitfall of exchanging tangible or substituting intangible things for intangibles that actually mean more to them. So don't make the pitfall of thinking, well, it pays enough so I can ignore these other things, because in the end, it's the tangible things that bring you to a job, but it's the intangible things that will keep you there. So make sure you've done a thorough search and a thorough evaluation of what's most important to you. And I wish you all the best in your career searches. Thank you very much.